I'm going to call the meeting to order. I'm going to ask you to please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome everyone here to the regular town board meeting. We have two public hearings to begin with. Public hearing improvements at Cornwall Sewer District. I'll read the notice. Notice of public hearing. Notice hereby given the town board of the town of Cornwall in County of Orange, State of New York. We'll meet at Town Hall, 183 Main Street, Cornwall, New York, on January 8, 2018 at 7 o'clock p.m. prevailing time for the purpose of conducting a public hearing in relation to the increase and improvements of facilities of the Cornwall Sewer District consisting of improvements to the Shore Road Wastewater Treatment Facility Phase 2 and other related or ancillary work in connection therewith, as described in the report prepared by the engineers duly licensed by the state of New York at an estimated maximum cost of $7.5 million. At said public hearing, the town board will hear all persons interested in said subject matter thereof by order of the town board of the town of Cornwall, County of Orange, State of New York, Renata McGee, town clerk. This is to continue on the phase 2 plans that we have for the sewer plant, working with the FC in Albany. I'll declare the public hearing open. Anyone wishing to speak on the matter of the proposed bonding? I'll ask one more time. Anyone wishing to speak on this proposed? Hearing no one, is a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Move, second, discussion, roll call.
Mr. Russell?
Yes.
Mr. McGinnis?
Yes.
Ms. Bunt? Mr. Summerfield?
Yes.
Mr. Randazzo?
Yes, motion is carried. We're a few minutes ahead of ourselves. The next one is 7:05.
Sure, there's a bus letting out in front right now. We can set them all for 7.
We should have set it for 7.
You just go in after.
Certainly, we would have 5 minutes we could have covered.
That's all right.
Okay, 7:05, I'll read the public hearing notice on the repeal and reenactment of the local law utility poles. Notice of public hearing. Please take notice the town board of the town of Cornwall will hold a public hearing on the 8th day of January 2018 at 7:05 p.m. at Town Hall, 183 Main Street, Cornwall, New York, on a proposed local law entitled "The Local Law to Amend the Town Code by Repealing and Reenacting a New Chapter 139 entitled Utility Poles." The purpose of this local law is to promote the public health, safety, and welfare by repealing and reenacting Chapter 139 to the Town Code entitled Utility Poles for the purpose of requiring expeditious relocation of utility facilities and the removal of double wood utility poles. Copy of the proposed local law is on file in the office of the town clerk and available for inspection by interested persons during town clerk's business hours. Town board will, at the above date, time, and place, hear all persons interested in the subject matter hereof. Person may appear in person or by agent. All written communications addressed to the board must be received by the board at or prior to the public hearing by order of the town board, town of Cornwall, Renata McGee, town clerk. I think we've discussed revising the local law on the double poles, and after consultation with various agencies and Central Hudson, this is the draft that the attorneys come up with for the board to review. So I'm going to declare the public hearing open. Anyone wishing to speak on this proposed local law? Hearing no one. Anyone wishing to speak on the proposed local law? Hearing no one, is a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Move, second, discussion, roll call.
Mr. Russell?
Yes.
Mr. McGinnis?
Yes.
Ms. Bunt?
Yes.
Mr. Summerfield?
Yes.
Mr. Randazzo?
Yes, motion is carried. We have approval of minutes, December 4th, 2017 special meeting, December 11th regular meeting, December 16th special meeting. Is there a motion to accept the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
By Helen, second. Discussion, roll call.
Mr. Russell?
Yes.
Mr. McGinnis?
Yes.
Ms. Bunt?
Yes.
Mr. Summerfield?
Yes.
Mr. Randazzo?
Yes, motion is carried. Public comment, agenda items. Anyone wishing to speak on any items on the agenda? Yes.
My name is Carla Castillo. I again would like to share my support for the appointees that the town board is considering for the CAC. New appointees being Francie Schuster and Barbara Smith-Joya, reappointments being myself, Mary Elizabeth Pearsall, and Nicholas Moran. They were all at the town board work session at the last session, and they have been very instrumental and helpful to the work of the CAC in the past year. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else, public comment? Hearing no one, we'll go to the first item on the agenda, which is board action on the improvements to the Cornwall Sewer District order. Is there a motion to waive the reading of the entire?
So moved.
Second.
Move, second, discussion, roll call?
Mr. Russell?
Yes.
Mr. McGinnis?
Yes.
Ms. Bunt?
Yes.
Mr. Summerfield?
Yes.
Mr. Randazzo?
Yes, motion is carried. I will read now, therefore, it is hereby determined that it is in the public interest to increase and improve the facilities of the district as here and above described at the estimated maximum cost of $7.5 million, and it is hereby ordered that the facilities of the district shall be so increased and improved that the engineer heretofore retained by the town board shall prepare plans and specifications and make a careful estimate of the expense for said increase and improvement of such facilities. And with the assistance of the town attorney, shall prepare a proposed contract for such increase and improvement of facilities of the district, which plans and specifications, estimate, and proposed contract shall be presented to the town board as soon as possible. And it's hereby further ordered that the expense of said increase and improvement of facilities shall be financed by the issuance of $7.5 million in bonds of the town, and the cost of said increase and improved facilities, including payment of principal and interest on said bonds, shall be paid by the assessment levy and collection of assessments upon the several lots and parcels of land within the district which the town board shall deem especially benefited by said facilities. So much upon and from each as shall be in its just proportion to the amount of benefit which the improvement shall confer upon the same. It is hereby further ordered that the town clerk record or cause to be recorded a certified copy of this resolution in order after public hearing in the office of the town clerk of Orange County within 10 days after the adoption of thereof, dated January 8, 2018, Town Board, Town of Cornwall.
So moved.
Motion on resolution?
Second.
Move the second. Roll call?
Mr. Russell?
Yes.
Mr. McGinnis?
Yes.
Ms. Bunt?
Yes.
Mr. Summerfield?
Yes.
Mr. Randazzo?
Yes, motion is carried. Next, I have a resolution on the adoption of the proposed local law on utility poles, whereas the town board has considered the adoption of a local law entitled Local Law to Amend the Town Code by repealing and reenacting a new Chapter 139 entitled Utility Poles, and whereas following due notice, the town board held a public hearing on proposed local law. And therefore be it resolved as follows, that the town board does hereby adopt the above local law, which said local law shall be effective upon publication, posting and filing in the office of the Secretary of State in Albany. And two, the town board determines that the adoption of this local law is a type 2 action under SECRA. Is there a motion on the resolution?
So moved.
Second.
Moved, second, discussion, roll call?
Mr. Russell?
Yes.
Mr. McGinnis?
Yes.
Ms. Bunt?
Yes.
Mr. Summerfield?
Yes.
Mr. Randazzo?
Yes, motion is carried. Next item is the Association of Towns annual meeting that's held in New York City.
I would like to entertain a motion. I think that's what we need, is to limit the Association of Towns to town personnel or elected officials that are going just for their continuing education, their mandatory education purposes, like the judges.
Like the judges.
Mhm.
And the building inspector also, but he's not going, he chooses to go to other programs. I do have a letter, a couple of letters from one board member, but I have a letter from the town justices. Both Judge Navarro and Judge Bisek request the town board's permission to attend the 2018 Association of Towns annual meeting and training school from February 18th through 21st in New York City. Attendance is mandatory for yearly certification.
Well, I would disagree with that. I find that is very valuable, especially with so many issues that we have. And there really is no other place to gather information, to network. And there's also the opportunity to visit with a lot of vendors that provide services, and so we would have a better idea of what opportunities there are out there, whether it's solar farms or any number of different services that are offered. And it's not a great expense, and it's important that we have the opportunity to inform ourselves of issues. And there is no other place to go. There's no place online, and there's no other forum where you can get together with council people from other towns and better understand what they're doing and what's working for them and what's not working for them.
Well, we do have the monthly meetings of the supervisor and mayors in Orange County, which they have the speaker come usually every month, and you get a chance to meet board members and other officials and appointed officials throughout the county. So you might want to consider, Michael, coming to some of those meetings.
I didn't know I was eligible.
No, absolutely you are. It's monthly. So. Was there a second to the motion?
Second.
Further discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Russell?
Yes.
Mr. McGinnis?
Yes.
Ms. Bunt?
Yes.
Mr. Summerfield?
No.
Mr. Randazzo?
Yes, the motion is carried. We had talked over the past couple months about entering into an agreement with the Cornwall Historical Society that would more or less be an agreement with the society with regard to the use of town space, and also with a clause that would indicate that if the Historical Society were to disband at some time in the future, that all of the items, artifacts, and their collection would be turned over to the town. I have a resolution. Whereas the town of Cornwall, town and the Cornwall Historical Society, CHS, wish to enter into an agreement regarding the use of the town hall premises by CHS to store and display historical documents, artifacts, and materials regarding the town in return for the service of curating the said items for the benefit of the community and making them available for public viewing. Whereas the town and CHS wish to memorialize their agreement by executing the annexed agreement setting forth the terms and conditions. Now therefore be resolved as follows. The town board hereby agrees to enter into said agreement and authorize the supervisor to execute the same. Is there a motion on the resolution?
So,
Second.
Move second, discussion?
Just a question, is
Sure.
that the December 1 draft? Is that the most recent draft there is?
Yeah, I think,
This is the B seeker's proposed changes are incorporated in his work. That's what draft this is.
Okay. Do y'all have that, or is? I don't know.
I believe so.
And here on the
You've sent
resolution.
to the town, I
Minus
don't know.
January
I believe so.
2018.
Yeah, it was just a minor, couple
Okay.
minor things that,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's-
that he had put into it, yeah. There was nothing, yeah, there was no real objection, we just,
It's made with changes. It's really
Yeah.
not the-
Got it.
Roll call?
Mr. Russell?
Yes.
Mr. McGinnis?
Yes.
Ms. Bunt?
Yes.
Mr. Summerfield?
Yes.
Mr. Randazzo?
Yes, the motion is carried. I have a letter from the attorney through Drake Globe, Timothy McElduff Jr. Over the past probably 2 years or almost 3 years, the town had been contacted through some research about a trust fund that was being held by the Mellon Bank, New York Mellon Bank, for the Sands Ring Cemetery. It was money that fund that had been started, I think probably back around 1930, give or take, strictly for the benefit of the upkeep and maintenance of the Sands Ring Cemetery. And apparently the last surviving or survivors of the family no longer wanted to be involved with the trust fund, and so the town and the family, the trust fund, and the bank, through the courts, came to an agreement that will make the fund available to the town of Cornwall to improve and maintain the Sands Ring Cemetery off of Main Street. So as we would proceed, what we would do is take a look at the cemetery as soon as the weather breaks from the winter, so probably sometime in August. But we'll take a look at it and come up with a plan for what needs to be done to restore elements of the cemetery and to improve it and to make it more accessible to the public. And they have broken it down, I think, into basically 3 parts. One is the cemetery, One is, I believe they call the Sands Ring Cemetery Park, which is the property in front of the cemetery. And also, under certain conditions, they may consider some of the money being used for the Sands Ring Homestead. This would all have to be approved by there's a trustee that'll oversee the account, and also the Attorney General's office has very strict regulations and requirements for that. So I will mention for the record that as of this letter, December 11, 2017, the balance in the trust fund was $347,345.90. So it's a substantial amount of money, but the town, like I said, will prepare the plans to do the work on the cemetery. And I think we can make it something that, would be of interest to our residents as well as people who come into Cornwall that have an interest in cemeteries and the historical significance of them, especially tied in with the Sands Ring Homestead, which there's a good storyline and a long time family history there that it'll give us a chance to really showcase that. Steve, I don't think, is there anything that the board has to do? It's been ordered by the court.
No, when the time is appropriate and the town board has decided what actions it wants to take, you'll need a resolution to submit the plan or the claims for maintenance to the trust. But for the time being, until you decide what it is you want to do, no, it's just a reading.
Okay. Next, I have a resolution regarding EFC Phase 2 application. Whereas the town board has determined to proceed with Phase 2 improvements for the town of Cornwall sewage treatment plant, whereas the town will need to borrow funds for continuation of the project, and whereas in order to confirm the town's intent to proceed with the project, required that the supervisor complete and sign the attached New York State Environmental Facilities Corporation, New York State Revolving Funds financing application for completion and execution. Now therefore be resolved as follows. Town board hereby authorizes Richard Randazzo, town supervisor, to execute and submit the attached financing application together with any and all related documents necessary to meet the conditions of the financing application. Is there a motion on the resolution?
So moved. Second.
Move second, discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Russell?
Yes.
Mr. McGinnis?
Yes.
Ms. Bunt?
Yes.
Mr. Summerfield?
Yes.
Mr. Randazzo?
Yes, the motion is carried. Next item, the Greater Cornwall Chamber of Commerce held their annual car show, I believe on Labor Day this past fall. And the net proceeds was $4,000, and they donated $800 to emergency services in Cornwall. Town of Cornwall Police Department, we received $800, which we appreciate the Chamber thinking of how the money can benefit the community. And Chief Hazard has recommended that we have to replace the defibrillator in the department, which is $1,586.48 from Physio Control, Inc. So I'd like to have a motion to authorize the purchase of the defibrillator, applying the $800 contribution from the Greater Chamber to offset the cost for the town.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
discussion, roll call.
Mr. Russell?
Yes.
Mr. McGinnis?
Yes.
Ms. Bunt?
Yes.
Mr. Summerfield?
Yes.
Mr. Randazzo?
Yes, motion is carried. Next is a contract with the county for the senior citizen bus. Whereas the town annually enters into a contract with the County of Orange for services to provide transportation for senior citizens to Munger Cottage and for related activities. Whereas the town of Cornwall has received the 2018 agreement for vendor services from the Office of the Aging between the County of Orange and the town of Cornwall, and whereas the town board wishes to once again enter into said agreement with the county, now therefore be resolved as follows. Town board hereby agrees to enter into the above agreement and authorize the supervisor to execute the same. Is there a motion on the resolution?
So
Moved by Helen, second Perry. Discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Russell?
Yes.
Mr. McGinnis?
Yes.
Ms. Bunt?
Yes.
Mr. Summerfield?
Yes.
Mr. Randazzo?
Yes, motion is carried. And we have two audits that have been completed for the Justice Court, one for 2015, one for 2016. Albany requires that these be submitted to them. I have a resolution, whereas the Unified Justice Court Act, UJCA, requires that town justices annually provide their court records and dockets for audit, that the results of the audit be entered into the minutes of the town board proceedings. Whereas additionally, New York State Unified Court System has created initiatives for increased monitoring and compliance with UJCA. Section 2019A. Whereas UCS has requested that the town provide copies of audits or examinations for fiscal years 2015 and 2016. Now therefore be resolved as follows. The town board hereby authorizes the supervisor to provide UCS with the most recent audit or examination reports for fiscal years ending 2015 and 2016. Town clerk is requested and directed to provide a certified copy of this resolution to be included with the submission of the audit or examination reports to UCS. Is there a motion on the resolution?
So moved.
Your second?
Second.
Discussion?
Is there any cost to us on this?
The cost is paying to have the audits performed. When they audit the town each year, they include the
It's a
justice.
subset of what we already.
Yeah. Roll call?
Mr. Russell?
Yes.
Mr. McGinnis?
Yes.
Ms. Bunt?
Yes.
Mr. Summerfield?
Yes.
Mr. Randazzo?
Yes, motion is carried. Next item is an update on the town hall telephone system. I brought the board up to date as to what's going on for the past 6 months. In the spring, we had authorized the purchase of a new telephone system for town hall, and Verizon, through fiber optic, was going to provide the equipment for the changeover. And after 6 months of, I can't tell you how many visits from Verizon and work being done, when they got down to testing the systems and all, they came back to the town and said, the only way the system will work is if the town switches all of our telephone numbers to Beacon numbers, no longer Cornwall numbers. So that was an impediment that we weren't prepared for. But our, through Matrix, our private phone company, they've submitted a proposal to us as an alternate route to put in the equipment that they would need to make the proper connections at a cost of $1,127.45. While this is an additional cost, if I'm not mistaken, Verizon had actually billed us for about $1,800, for which I think we've gotten credit for everything but about $50, I
Yeah.
think, is all that remains. So it's actually turned out to be less than Verizon, but it's also cost 6 months in terms of time and wasted energy on behalf of a lot of people. But just as a motion to, I have a resolution, let me read that for the work to be done. Whereas the town has received a proposal from Matrix Communications to move and install a telephone system, SIP trunk addition to the town's phone system, and whereas the town is prepared to accept the attached proposal from Matrix and move forward with the installation, now therefore be resolved as follows. The town board hereby agrees to enter into said agreement with Matrix and authorize the supervisor to execute the same. Is there a motion on the resolution?
So moved.
Second.
Move, second, discussion.
Just have a question, how long are we locked in the contract with Matrix on this system?
Well, it's, I believe we probably have an annual service charge that we pay, which we've been paying, I think, probably for the past 15 years since we had it. But it'll be a couple months before the system probably gets actually hooked up and all. In the end, even going through this other carrier, we may still save some money because we'll save money on Verizon charges for phone lines, and we're going through the other company.
Will we locked in for any term on the contract, or?
I don't believe so. I mean, you know, I don't know of any. It's because we're paying up front for what the additional costs are, so it's a matter of them just providing the service for the telephone service, just like Verizon does, Peter.
Okay.
So I think we'd be flexible. We really don't have a lot of options.
No, we don't.
Verizon, the big carrier, can't do it.
We saved
So-
about $600.
Yes, we do. Roll call?
Mr. Russell?
Yes.
Mr. McGinnis?
Yes.
Ms. Bunt?
Yes.
Mr. Summerfield?
Yes.
Mr. Randazzo?
Yes, motion is carried. Okay, next is on the Faircliff Heights Water District. We have approximately 140 users in the district. It's a small district. And we get the water directly from New Windsor. We pay New Windsor for the water supply. And I have a resolution with regard to an increase in the rates. Whereas residents in the Faircliff Heights Water District, the district now pay $12.40 per 1,000 gallons, whereas it's necessary for the town to increase water rates in order to meet the expense of the district, whereas it's necessary for the town board to authorize the increase, now therefore be resolved as follows. Town board hereby authorizes a 12% increase in water rates in the district from $12.40 per 1,000 gallons to $13.89 per 1,000 gallons, effective January 1, 2018. Is there a motion on the resolution?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Mr.
Well, now that the district is in deficit, so
We-
we're trying
we-
to catch up on that deficit.
Yeah, we've had a deficit, we're trying to work our way through that, but also we've been falling short in terms of paying for the supply, the water to New Windsor. So this will help offset some of that cost. Roll call?
Mr. Russell?
Yes.
Mr. McGinnis?
Yes.
Ms. Bunt?
Yes.
Mr. Summerfield?
Yes.
Mr. Randazzo?
Yes, motion is carried. Okay, next is on the elevator service company. Our company that we were using went out of business. So we have a proposal from ThyssenKrupp Elevator of Americas, and the new contract is preventative maintenance, full coverage parts and replacement, quality assurance, maintenance control. It's pretty comprehensive, really, for it. And the annual charge, go through all these papers. Let me see. Let's see. 30. I know it's in here somewhere. This one's about 3,300. Yes, okay, it's $275 per month. Figure roughly 3,300. Is there a motion to approve, or let me read the resolution. Whereas the town has received a proposed service agreement from ThyssenKrupp Elevator Corporation to provide a comprehensive maintenance program for the town hall elevator, whereas the town is prepared to accept the attached proposal from ThyssenKrupp, therefore be resolved as follows. The town board hereby agrees to enter into the said agreement with ThyssenKrupp and authorize the supervisor to execute the same. Is there a motion on the resolution?
So moved.
Second.
Move, second, third. Discussion, roll call.
Mr. Russell?
Yes.
Mr. McGinnis?
Yes.
Ms. Bunt?
Yes.
Mr. Summerfield?
Yes.
Mr. Randazzo?
Yes, motion is carried. I have a letter from Mary Beth Green, market manager for the farmers market. After the success of having expanded the December holiday community farmers market, I'm requesting to do similar markets on January 27th, February 24th, and April 28th to be held in Munger Cottage from 10:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. The March market will not be held due to the spring Easter holiday. Recreation Department will be collaborating with the Greater Cornwall Chamber of Commerce to include small businesses located throughout the town and neighboring areas at the January 27th market. Non-members of the chamber are also welcome. Our February 24th Winter Community Farmers Market schedule will incorporate the community's nonprofit organizations within the Cornwall area, and the April 28th market will host our community children's organizations, including Town Recreation Department programs. We look forward to Cornwall gathering to shop, participate, and enjoy these upcoming markets. We're trying to expand the farmers market. Obviously, it's a difficult market. I'm going to say the market area is a small market area compared to a lot of the other farmers markets in the area. So we're seeing if we can just broaden it a little bit and bring some interest in, and maybe give some of the local businesses and organizations an opportunity to participate. So is there a motion to approve the request for the 3 months?
Second.
Move, second, discussion, roll call.
Mr. Russell?
Yes.
Mr. McGinnis?
Yes.
Ms. Bunt?
Yes.
Mr. Summerfield?
Yes.
Mr. Randazzo?
Yes, motion is carried. Next, I have an early request from the Cornwall Garden Club, Think Spring, requesting that they hold their annual plant sale for May 12th. In order to accommodate tent setup, plant deliveries, sale itself, and cleanup, we need to use the location from 9 a.m. on Thursday, May 10th, until 5 p.m. on Saturday, May 12th. Obviously, they've been using the front of the town hall for the event. It's become an annual tradition. It's one of the fundraising events held by the Cornwall Garden Club. They use the profits of sale and programs for community beautification projects such as the Gardens of Shadane Circle, Munger Cottage, and scholarships. So it's a great event. It's well attended and well appreciated, and we appreciate the work that the Garden Club does for the beautification of the community. And it's signed by Andrea Hamburger, Cornwall Garden Club. Is there a motion to approve the request?
So moved.
Second.
Move, second, discussion, roll call.
Mr. Russell?
Yes.
Mr. McGinnis?
Yes.
Ms. Bunt?
Yes.
Mr. Summerfield?
Yes.
Mr. Randazzo?
Yes,
We'll
motion is
hope
carried.
they don't get that pouring rain this year.
Oh.
Last year was bad.
What's the date again? I'm sorry.
May 12th.
The 12th. I think they held it the next day, finished up the next day, right? They had plants
Yeah,
left.
and they even pre-sold last year a little bit, just in
The weather was, it
anticipation.
was a downpour. Okay, just on the next item, sanitation truck, the new sanitation truck that the town purchased is almost ready for delivery to the town. We have one item that we have to address, and that is special lighting for safety, including strobe lights and rear flood lighting. The proposal from the sanitation company that is actually delivering the truck was $1,887.14. And we sought a local price through HV Public Safety Lighting, and they submitted a proposal for $870. So it's considerable savings, and it's local. So I'd like to have a motion just to approve the additional lighting by HV Public Safety Lighting for $870.
So moved.
Second.
Move second, discussion.
Do we have these lights on the other
There are.
vehicles?
Yeah, I tried to talk to the company that has spec'd out the contract, but apparently that wasn't part of the spec that they had put in. But it's a safety feature that is pretty standard. I was surprised they didn't have that
That's standard
in
equipment.
there. Okay, do we do roll call?
No, we haven't. Mr. Russell?
Yes.
Mr. McGinnis?
Yes.
Ms. Bunt?
Yes.
Mr. Summerfield?
Yes.
Mr. Randazzo?
Yes, motion is carried. Okay, under training, I have a memo from bookkeeper Pam Wood. Request approval to attend annual GFOA Government Finance Officers Association Conference, March 20th to 23rd. In Albany, conference provides an abundance of information, training, and education in all areas of government finance. Attached conference registration form, costs associated attend will be $200 for the conference, $250 for pre-conference sessions, meals included, and hotel accommodations for 3 nights at a rate of $142 per night and mileage. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Move second, discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Russell?
Yes.
Mr. McGinnis?
Yes.
Ms. Bunt?
Yes.
Mr. Summerfield?
Yes.
Mr. Randazzo?
Yes, motion is carried. Second request on training is from the building inspector. Respectfully request permission for each of the building department employees to attend a 3-day training school during 2018 calendar year. Steve Giacco, Hudson Valley Code Enforcement, April 10th to the 12th. Gary Vincent, Rockland County Code Enforcement, April 24th to 26th. Lodging will not be required as we plan on commuting daily. Funds have been allocated for training in this year's budget. Consideration requests would be greatly appreciated. Signed, Gary Vincent, Building Inspector. This is required annual training. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Move second. Discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Russell?
Yes.
Mr. McGinnis?
Yes.
Ms. Bunt?
Yes.
Mr. Summerfield?
Yes.
Mr. Randazzo?
Yes, the motion is carried. Okay, next under personnel, we have a few items. We have committee reappointments. These would be committee members who will be reappointed. I'll read the list. Zoning Board of Appeals, a 5-year term, Lenora Ransom, expiring December 31st, 2022. Planning Board, 5-year term, Joseph Grabe and Richard Bischoff, expiring December 31, 2022. Board of Ethics, 5-year term, Martin Riley, same December 30th, 2022. Conservation Advisory Council, 2-year term, Carla Castillo, Mary Elizabeth Pearsall, and Nicholas Moran. Expiration of the terms, December 31st, 2019. Economic Development Advisory Committee, 5 years, Anthony Davidowitz, December 31, 2022. Sandring Board of Trustees, 2-year term, Elsa Cameron, Peter Irwin, Mary Beth Green, Annie Keegan, Elizabeth Longinot, Eileen Tulloch, Colleen Zlock, all expiring December 31, 2019. Is there a motion to approve these reappointments?
I thought we were going to do a notification and ad
Well,
to try to attract more.
well, we are on the, we have, that,
Those are
the
the
next thing is gonna be the vacancies that we have,
Okay.
or open seats. We'll do that separate.
Do you have to do the senior advisory?
Pardon?
The senior advisory?
There's no term on them.
No term?
No,
Okay.
no, it's just continual.
We just stay forever.
Mm-hmm.
I'll make a motion.
Make a motion, is there a second?
Second?
Discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Russell?
Yes.
Mr. McGinnis?
Yes.
Ms. Bunt?
Yes.
Mr. Summerfield?
Yes.
Mr. Randazzo?
Yes, motion is carried. Next, appointments for Historical Museum Ad Hoc Committee. I have The board, we interviewed several residents who were interested in serving. Tim Tetrault, Elsa Cameron, Susan Camlet, Annie Keegan, Colleen Zlock, Soshana Abelis. Deputy Supervisor Bunt will be a member of the committee and also liaison for the town board. And James Kimple will participate as a facilitator for the group. James has a great background in working with groups and developing information and really just bringing people together. He said, I don't want to be on the committee, but I would happy to be the facilitator for it. So is there a motion to make those appointments? This anticipated would run probably for the next few months or several months for the committee to take a look and do the work and report back to the board. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Russell?
Yes.
Mr. McGinnis?
Yes.
Ms. Bunt?
Yes.
Mr. Summerfield?
Yes.
Mr. Randazzo?
Yes, motion is carried. And let's see, at this point, I just want to mention, let's see, the sanitation driver, yeah. I just want to mention with the committee positions to be filled. We have Board of Assessment Review, 1 position. Conservation Advisory Council, 3 positions. Economic Development Advisory Committee, 1 position. Sands Ring Board of Trustees, 2 positions. And the board has determined that we will go back to a practice that exists for many years, that the board will actually conduct interviews for future committee appointments. We have a couple of letters of people that are interested. We will get a notice in the paper of the positions that we have vacancies for, and then once we get the letters from the residents, we'll set up a time to interview. So. One other item under appointments, we have a appointment of Steve Guzzo. Steve is currently a laborer chauffeur in the Highway Department, and entertain a motion to transfer Mr. Guzzo from highway to sanitation driver, step 3, effective January 12th, 2018. Is there a motion?
Second.
Did you make, Kerry made it? Peter second, discussion, roll call?
Mr. Russell?
Yes.
Mr. McGinnis?
Yes.
Ms. Bunt?
Yes.
Mr. Summerfield?
Yes.
Mr. Randazzo?
Yes, motion is carried. Committee reports. Deputy Supervisor Bunt.
The Senior Advisory Committee was supposed to meet today, but because of the weather and all, we've decided to postpone that for a couple more weeks, and we're gonna get together with ideas and plan for the coming year, special events. One possible one is seniors have talent, and they have a few others that they're planning on. The insurance comes up March 1st. I believe we're gonna start looking at that with our current agent. And the planning board report, well, not the planning board, the planning department, permits 29, CC's 13, COs 3, on-site inspections 60, complaints 2, notice of violation 4, fire inspection 7, signs removed 3, permit fees $8,446.70, fees for municipal search $3,300. Planning board projects open year-to-date 3, and then year-to-date are 9, and zoning is year-to-date 4.
So activity has definitely picked up in
Exactly.
the building department planning, so it's good.
And that's it. I do want to say that on the motion that I made for the, to go to the Association of Towns, I just feel that if it's not a mandated education thing, you really feel serious about going, I'm sure you'll go
Oh, I'm
at your own expense.
I am.
And I always went at my own expense.
Okay, Councilman.
The CCAC met December 4th and had a presentation by Cornwall, the group that was doing the landscaping and site work. Although I arrived on time, the meeting started early without me. Carla is going to give a review of what the professor said and when we can expect the written reports coming out. And I don't have anything for cable and lighting.
Okay. Councilman Russell?
For the police department, for December 2017, there were 741 calls for service, 44 motor vehicle accidents were reported, 40 alarms, that includes residential and business, building alarms. There were 27 ambulance requests, 14 animal complaints, 25 disabled vehicles, 17 calls for suspicious vehicles or persons, 7 house checks, and 12 assists for other agencies. Nothing further from the police department. From sewer, for Firthcliffe, on top of routine maintenance, as far as measured parameters, unfortunately, flow still remains an issue. It's 0.04 over the allowable limit, but all other parameters are within permit limits. And as for Shore Road, on top of routine maintenance, happy to report that all measured parameters are within permit limits. Recreation, you stole my thunder with the farmer's market, so we know what's happening with the farmer's market, and nothing else to report from recreation.
Good, thank you. Councilman McGinnis?
For the month of December, the highway department performed road maintenance, plowed and salted during several winter storms, cleaned and maintained town sidewalks, maintained equipment during winter weather, changed plow blades, washed and cleaned trucks and equipment, cleaned around highway shop, helped sanitation department with routes, cold patched in Beaver Dam Lake area, and fixed catch basin in the highway garage lot. And the comprehensive plan committee will meet a week from this coming Wednesday at 6:30 at Town Hall. And the committee will be discussing the results of the of the online survey. As of December 21st, there were 318 respondents. I don't have the final number yet. We will be meeting with one of our consultants Thursday about that.
Okay, good. Okay, on the Economic Development Advisory, we'll be discussing with the chairman and the planning professional that we had retained, just discussing possible grant applications and also looking at maybe submitting an application to the Greenway. On the grant program that the state put out, I've been in touch with the county for the pedestrian safety, which we think fits in nicely with the proposals that we're going to be considering for Main Street and the center of town in terms of enhancing pedestrian safety. I think with the holidays, it's kind of hard to pull everybody together through the with the county and all, but during January I hope to meet with the right people at the county. I've had discussions, but really get together and see what kind of an application we could put in to really enhance some of these, and looking at crosswalks and things like that that I think are of concern, Willow Avenue, Main Street, up at Quaker, and I'll just see if we can't get improvements through through a state grant, which would be very helpful. With that too, I'll note that the engineer and police chief have been in contact with the county with regard to the traffic circle and signage and so forth, and we'll be following up on that. A couple, I think, signs that get hit and taken out and they're missing, and just sort of try to tighten that up so that it's a little clearer, especially coming from Quaker into the traffic circle. It can be a little confusing if the signage isn't proper, but I think they're coming up with a plan that will certainly, there again, help enhance the safety for those using the traffic circle. So with that, I have warrant number 1. Is there a motion?
So,
Second.
Move second. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Russell?
Yes.
Mr. McGinnis?
Yes.
Ms. Bunt?
yes.
Mr. Summerfield?
Yes.
Mr. Randazzo?
Yes, motion is carried. Public comment? Anything? Yes, Carla.
So the first part is the report out that Councilman Summerfield requested, and then the second part is going to be a public comment. So regarding the scenic resources inventory presentation that was made by the Cornell University students back on December 4th, they basically presented an analysis that they did, which was basically a compilation of all the information collected over 2 days in Cornwall just prior to Halloween at a library, basically an open house, and at during Spooktacular, where people were able to identify their most preferred scenic areas that they like to enjoy here in Cornwall. So the students prepared a preliminary report. Councilman Summerfield and Supervisor Randazzo were both present and heard the preliminary report. It is still in a very preliminary stage. They're finalizing the information, so I think in general that's about as much as I can say. But as soon as as it's available, I will share it with the town board. It'll be comprised of a PowerPoint presentation and a written narrative. In terms of the CAC, the last meeting in January, this past last week, we met with the 3 folks who were just reappointed tonight, and as well as the people that we hope to be appointed. We didn't have a quorum, and so we had a number of conversations around the action plan, moving forward with the action plan. It was suggested that the committee the council add a few more meetings or double up on about 6 months out of the year to be able to accomplish the work that it is working on. And there was a discussion on the value of the different locations where different community education events could be held. So some may make more sense for the library, others may make more sense for Munger Cottage, others maybe would be in a public setting like Two Alice's or Fiddlesticks. So that's the report on the CAC. And then on the public comment, I was, so of course, I'm a little disappointed that the 2 additional folks that had requested to be appointed to the CAC were not appointed, because it leaves me with exactly 5 people currently for a quorum. So that means that I may not necessarily be able to conduct official business until the reappointment process is complete. So I'm wondering what the time frame is for this, and if there have been criteria that have already been thought through, and is this going to be a public process in which people can participate, or at minimum I can participate since I chair the committee?
Well, the first thing we're going to do is get a notice in the paper that we have these openings, and soliciting letters of interest from the residents, and then the board will determine how we're going to proceed from there. But we will conduct interviews for each of the positions.
So there is no time frame established?
No, we will get the notice in the paper as soon as we can. Depending on the response we get, then we'll determine when we're going to actually hold the interviews. And I would just encourage your 5 members to make sure they get to a meeting so that you can continue.
Yes.
Yeah, whether you have a quorum or not, even, maybe you can't vote and do something, but you can still discuss business and,
Sure.
Sure.
So
we will do it as quickly as we can.
And will I be allowed to participate? Is it that kind of, I'm not sure about this interview process, and I see Steve shaking his head.
I'm not no chairman of any committee participates in selection of the committee members. It's
Okay.
This is a practice, Carla, that has gone, for years, the town board, decades, I will say. The
Okay.
town board has always interviewed, but in recent years, the board had gotten away from doing that, but because they are town board appointments, board members generally feel that, we should really conduct the interviews.
Okay.
Okay?
All right, thank you.
Yes?
I just want to thank you for addressing some of the signage in the traffic circle. As someone who's lived here my entire life, I'm seeing a lot more people that are driving the wrong way in the circle. I also have some concerns about people blowing through that stop sign at the bottom of Angola Road. I had in the morning noticed there's a little bit more police presence, which I think is, might curtail us. But I thank you for addressing this, because I think that circle is an accident waiting for to happen.
It is.
Thank you.
And I will say that one thing that I will bring up with the county also is some people, when they're at the stop sign on Hasbrook, tend to make a decision that they're going to make that left-hand
Yes,
turn.
that-
Oh, yes.
I think about that.
Yeah,
It'd be so much easier.
So on the sign, they can go left-hand turn.
and I have actually seen a car one time go from Hasbrook to Angola Road. So, but I think if we get like a no left turn at Hasbrook, just to make people aware that that's not a good idea to do. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session to discuss personnel pertaining to the highway superintendent.
Second.
Move, second, discussion, roll call.
Mr. Russell?
Yes.
Mr. McGinnis?
Did this
Yes.
gentleman
Ms.
have
Bunt?
something to say?
I don't know, did you, sir?
Yeah, sorry.
Wait, hold on one second.
Ms.
I would just-
Bunt?
Do the roll call.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, do the roll call.
And Mr. Summerfield?
Yes.
Mr. Randazzo?
Yes, motion
you.
carried. Yes, sir, if you just give us your name and,
My name's Ted Lestrange. The address, I'm not local. My address is 6 Jeffrey Court, Otisville, New York, of course. And what I have to say is not on local matters at all, if that's okay.
go ahead.
And I've entitled this Genocide by Scalpel, because that's a title given by one of the investigators into forced organ harvesting in China. Their updated research concludes that China's hospitals transplant between 60,000 and 100,000 vital human body organs each year. But China has no real organ donation program. Here in the US, with the most sophisticated organ transplant system in the world, a patient could wait up to 3 years for matching organ to become available. In China, however, the waiting time is measured in weeks. An organ transplant tourist to China, including one from right here, can arrange a specific date for their operation, which effectively means that someone to be killed on their behalf on that date. It's a cultural taboo in China to donate one's organs after death. So what's the source of all these organs? The translation of these facts equates to tens of thousands of prisoners' conscience each year being killed for their organs. Most of these prisoners' conscience are Falun Gong practitioners, but also Tibetans, Uyghurs, and house Christians. They're routinely blood tested and their organs examined while held in China's forced labor camps, detention centers, and black jails. On June 13th last year, the US House of Representatives unanimously passed Resolution 343, which in its summary, quote, condemns the practice of state-sanctioned forced organ harvesting in China. Europe, close quote. European Parliament has also passed similar recommendations. This has been happening for over 17 years. There's still a deathly silence on this issue, and that is why we come before you, the elected and respected representatives of the community, to wake up the heavy burden of this genocide as acknowledged by the House. China's total control of its own media is waiting, so it comes down to this title here about the what's happening. Many dedicated researchers have gathered an enormous amount of data from current and archived hospital websites, medical journals, local media reports, telephone surveys, and other evidence for the 865 hospitals in China that have performed these organ transplants. Some books are now being written and documentaries that have been produced with more comprehensive information. So I brought along this package of materials for your kind attention. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, you can bring those up and drop them off, and then we're going into executive session. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're gonna take a couple of minutes, right, because I have to clean up down here.
Yeah, no problem.
And,
A few minutes.
wait